I'm delighted and grateful to be here at Pacifica, because Pacifica means to make something peaceful. It has to do with peace, to make peace. And in a way, since I'm going to share the concept, the theory and the practice of human vocation, which is closely related to the idea of Pacifica, to make peace. Why? Well, we all know what vocation means. Normally we think, well, vocation has to do with what a young boy or girl is thinking to do or to study at school, or when he's going to go to the university, or if he's going to work on this, on that. What is my vocation? And it's a paradox, because sometimes we have to try to investigate, to know which is my vocation, which is my call. It's very strange. And sometimes they say, well, it's because they don't have information, they don't know, they have to be a doctor or engineer or professor, and it's the lack of information. But we know that it's not only a question of information. It has to do with a deeper problem, a deeper question, which is not related only to girls and boys, but to the human being. And it's that we don't know ourselves, and we don't know really what we want to do of our life. And that is the deeper sense of vocation. Vocation, it means call, as we know. Vocatio in Latin is the calling, and that calling has to do with the whole project of our lives. And human vocation, it's just to specify that it has a vocation, a calling for the whole life. It's not a matter of work only, of a personal life, in a family life. It has to do with your whole, or our whole life. Well, that's an old idea. And of course, our big friend Carl Gustav Jung said that vocation has to do with the voice, no? In German, it's a play of words, Bestimmung and Stimme. And it's the voice of the inner man, he says. Vocation has to do with the voice of the inner man. Well, that's the only idea we can find in Socrates. No? Know yourself. But when Socrates said, know yourself, notis auton in Greek, and other thinkers also there's equivalent idea in the East and in every society, traditional society. But the idea of Socrates was not to think only, of just know yourself by thinking. It's also by living and caring of the soul and of your inner soul, because sometimes we forget that in some texts we read that Socrates said also care of yourself. Epimeleia is in Greek, heautou. Take care of yourself, of the self, of this inner being, the autos. That's the idea of the human vocation. It's not only a theory, a concept, or it's also an empirical concept. It's something which must help to develop your inner, or our inner potentialities, but not only for the individual. It's not an individualistic proposal. It's a social proposal also, and it has to do with the whole world. Because the hypothesis of human vocation is that developing your own inner self, hearing the voice and following the voice of the inner man and woman. I mean, man in the big sense of anthropos, no? The big self. It means to give to yourself and to the other, to society and to the world, to the planet, your best. It's more or less equivalent, there's no synonymous, but more or less equivalent to the concept, to the Sanskrit concept, Hindu concept of Dharma, which is not the external duty. It means what has to do with your inner and your real being. So following your Dharma means to follow what you really are and what you have to develop to be free. That doesn't mean to follow what you want in the desire or limited sense of the word. It's to develop your potentialities for you and for the world. But the big question is it, how can I develop, found this human vocation, develop it? I mean, is there a recipe? There are no recipes. Because, why? There are no recipes. Why? Because if there are recipes, man would not be free. No? There wouldn't be freedom. So each case is unique. However, the wisdom of the East and of the West, of the North and of the South, the old traditions always have proposed theoretical and practical ways of founding and developing what we are now calling human vocation. And I think we have to, our challenge is to translate, to try to recover in our contemporary terms the old wisdom of the East, the West, and other cultures. So we can say that in a way there are four ways or four resources we have, just to synthesize, no? Would come from the past in order to develop and to found and develop this human vocation. So I will try to make a synthesis of this. The first of all, there are a lot of texts. There's a lot of theory in the good sense of the word, no? Because you know that theory has to do not only with intellect, it has to do with something which helps me to go to follow the path of truth. And texts in the old and the traditional texts are in a way maps which served, symbolic maps, of course, myths in the good sense of the word, symbolic maps which served other people in other times to follow, to develop their own human vocations. Of course, no human vocation is equal, but there are some archetypal, common grounds, and that is very useful when you must, or one must try to work on its own vocation. It's a map, it's a symbolic map, when you read it accordingly, it will, in a way, awaken this connection which, unfortunately, we have lost because we are, distracted with so many things in the human world nowadays. So that texts are like reminders. They're like guides, not to be taken literally, not to be imitated in a parodic way, but just to be recreated from inside. That is the great theory, the idea of the theory of the text which speaks to the soul. But there's a second resource. And this resource, I would call it has to do with the practices. No? It has to be with exercises. It has to be particularly with observation, with meditation, imagination, working with dreams. That is, working with the body also. Has to do with more a direct connection, or try to work a direct connection with the psyche, with the soul. Well, now, thanks to deep psychology, we have new ways. They are old ways, but renewed in order to make contact with the deeper layers of our being. But meditation is as old as man. No? Meditation was practiced also in the West, not only in the East. The problem is that we forgot it. Philosophy was absolutely connected with meditation. And in the East we have this magnificent text saying that also nature meditates. If you look at nature, in a way, is looking at totality. It has a wholeness sense. So there are a lot of means to work in your inside, in our inside. But this doesn't mean that you will meditate or work in your dreams and you will be closed in yourself. No. This is a way to deepen in yourself, but to be more responsible of society and of the external world. Because in a way, human vocation has to do with like a bet, no? Like a wager, that the inside and the outside are absolutely connected. If you work correctly your inside, you will be committed rightly with the outside, and the other way around. So, first resource, theory. Second, the practice. But you know that the theory is also practice in a way. The third resource, it's the other, the community. The other, the friend, but also the big community. But I think we need also the small community, the one with whom you can make a dialogue and silence. No, with the one you can talk, we can communicate, trying to share your deep and intimate situations. It's not only a theoretical, of course. You're not going to reason. No, only it's not only an argumentative relationship. It has to do with affection, and has to do with silence. No? You need the other. In ancient times, no, you have the Epicureans, for example. They said that a friend is an alter ego. No, in the sense, not ego in the sense we use it now. It means it's an alter self in a way. So this is the profound idea of friendship, of philia. It's a kind of love. No? And this great philosopher, Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, said that I am I if I am I and thou. And thou is thou, his and also an I, if I am he, the thou is also an I. So the relative man is that he cannot be enclosed in himself. We need the other one. We need to share. But of course, we need to make this sharing not only a wording sharing, but it's also a sharing in silence. Well, 3 resources, but now we have the fourth. The fourth is, well, a bit controversial sometimes, but it happens to be in every traditional society you found it, is the idea of the master, the director, etc., the guide. Of course, the true sense is that the master is an inside master. But it's true that in some societies, some situations, you have somebody who knows a bit more, who is like an example. You know that the very ancient idea between the Pythagoreans of the Magister Dixit, which is autos epha in Greek, doesn't mean he said what he said and he is the authority. It means, on the contrary, you are the master. You have to develop what he developed in your own way. And that's the real sense of the master. If you imitate it literally, as Jung says in the Red Book regarding to Christ, you are not going to be him. You are going to be a parody, in a sense. No? So, the 4 resources, theory, practice, community of dialogue, and the master understood as, in a way, as an inner master, are what in all times, and I think the challenge is to recover these resources in our own language, and each one has to try to find how can he manage to work with these 4 resources, are the ways we have to discover and develop human vocation. However, the most important thing is that is the attitude, sincerity, your profound disposition. Of course, we all have shadows, we all have contradictions. Contradictions are also, in a way, a calling, because it shows what it's an obstacle to a calling is also a calling. But there's a very wise proverb, Taoist proverb, saying that the right man with the wrong means works rightly, in a right way, while the wrong man with the right means works in the wrong way. So the emphasis is in the right man. Right man doesn't mean the perfect man. It means the man who is committed to his own self, and in this way committed also to society and to the whole world. Thank you very much.